It's the Sean Widmer Podcast. It's a journal by someone that just really doesn't like to write.
Happy Monday. Holy smokes. Good night. We made it. The Widmer family made it. We're going to talk about that here in 1 second. I have got the very worst part of parenting. I have figured it out. I have got the answer for you. So if you are a parent and you think you know, lock in your answers now. I've done the research. The very worst part of parenting coming up with you. We are going to face the hard truth, the reality of Disney. That's coming up at the end of the podcast. We have got to just hit it face on, head on, and facts are facts. We're going to talk about Disney thanks to my niece and nephews and sister for a question that I had missed weeks ago. We're going to discuss that. And I've got to talk a little bit of something I haven't said since I think 2006, 2007 on my sports radio show. We're going to revisit a comment that I can say again in 2025 in a weird way. But first and foremost, thank you for coming in and listening to the podcast. It means the world to me. I feel bad. I always ask for comments, and you can do that on Spotify, on YouTube, or over on my website, shawnslife.com. Excuse me, shawnslife.com. Easy for me to say as I choke. Water out of my water bottle. Sorry, Nalgene. Where was I? Oh, yeah, shawnslife.com. The comments there had not loaded for like 3 weeks. And I clicked on it today, and I was like, I can't believe I haven't got one comment in like 3 weeks on the website. They all came through this week. And so I felt bad because I missed a ton of comments. And we're going to get to one of them in particular at the end of the podcast today. The hardest part of parenting is where we start, though, because I've got it now. And I want to start by saying we made it through the weekend. The flu was here last week. We've had a week at the Widmer house. The flu was here last week. Olivia first half of the week. Huck second half of the week. It hit Huck hard. On Friday, he had a 106-degree temperature. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. So we get him taken into the doctor. They get him on the rotation of meds. They get him just situated, and he fights through Friday. Thursday night was awful for him. Friday is terrible during the day. He fights through. Saturday morning, he wakes up. He's still not doing great. This is probably 5 a.m. Fell back asleep after a round of medicine. He woke up at 8:30, and it looked like he had played all of Hoop Fest in those 3 hours. The fever had broke, and he was drenched. His hair matted to his face, the sweat everywhere on him. And he broke. That fever broke, and that was it. That was it. Thank goodness that was it. From that point on, the fever's gone. Hasn't been back all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and so it was just this weight lifted off of Dad's shoulders because seeing your kid in that much suffering is really hard. Especially, I'm emotional in general. That was very hard for me. So I am very thankful he is feeling better. Sunday, I'm recording this on Sunday night. He was great all day today. The kids have life. But because of this, how this has worked, my wife was gone all week. She came back, and the baby hasn't got the flu yet. And we were keeping him away. We did a really good job this week, I think, of keeping him away from the kids and separating them, the older kids from him. And we're still, not in the clear yet by any stretch. But she came and grabbed him when she got home Saturday morning and just took him away to my in-laws' house. And Anna and Woods have been off there living their best life because my mother-in-law's out of town. So Papa is bored, and I think they are eating like kings and queens over there, getting spoiled rotten as they should, and they're just living it up. So they've got out. So it's just been me and the big kids here this weekend. And we need this week to be done. We need Mom back in the house. We need the familiarity of a normal day where everyone's feeling good and we're doing the normal things in life. We need that to get here. But it also hit the bottom of the barrel because I didn't want to get out a whole lot. And when it's just you, again, shout out to single parents. You are it's unbelievable how you do it. When it's just you and the kids, I couldn't really leave the house. I'm kind of landlocked to the house. So in terms of going to the grocery store, there wasn't really a lot of options. It's not like I'm going to pack 2 kids up in the truck and just walk through the halls with a kid with a 106-degree fever. You're kind of in the house. And so beginning of the week, I'm feeling like good dad. Anna leaves. I go, okay, well, let's just make this week fun. The kids will miss my wife. Of course they will. They love Mom. But let's try to make this fun, and dinner time will be a fun time. So I start off the week pretty hot. I know they like nuggets, so yeah, I did the nuggets right off the bat. But we did like a fruit salad with it. and I kind of made the nuggets into fun shapes, and we had a big Tuesday night meal. Wednesday night, we did a big spaghetti and meatball dish, and it was great. I thought it was really good. My son ate a ton of it. My daughter doesn't like sauce as much, but she ate the noodles, and it was a really good dinner. Thursday night, I made a chicken pot pie. So I made a chicken pot pie, my daughter's favorite meal. She thought I was a rock star for that. Friday, then we were able to, I felt bad. My son, I hit it on a night. No, you know what? I pushed that to Saturday because Huck was dead to the world on Friday night. Olivia had leftover chicken pot pie, and Huck just survived through Friday night. Saturday night, we did the cheeseburgers. I made Huck cheeseburgers. We did burgers on Saturday night. And then I realized I got nothing left in the tank. And so we stumbled through Sunday today the whole way through. Breakfast, eggs, and Huck had oatmeal and eggs. Olivia had eggs and cereal. Lunch, we did peanut butter jelly sandwiches, just limping through the day. And got outside today, got to go to the park. It was great. Came home. I knew they were going to be hungry. And I'm like, what do we have? I had one box of mac and cheese. Threw the mac and cheese together, threw a couple chicken nuggets on there, and a couple strawberries. And I just looked at him. I said, this is it, guys. This is it. Eat it. Tomorrow, life is back. Get through. And I had top ramen. And that's where we're at in the Widmer house on a Sunday night. A little top ramen for dad. Nuggets and macaroni and cheese, the most cliche meal for the kids. But we have made it. We have made it. We survived it. It's great. So through this week, though, I found the hardest thing in parenting. And before we dive into the hardest thing in parenting, let's talk about some of the ones that are on the list but aren't actually the answer. And I thought they would be because we've done these things. Discipline is very hard. Discipline is a hard thing to do with kids. It's not the hardest thing in parenting, but knowing how to maneuver that, how to discipline correctly, I'm sure it changes kid to kid, household to household. Discipline's tough, not the hardest thing. Bedtime is hard. Getting your kids to go to bed, calming them down, getting them to go to sleep. That's such a hard thing in parenting. It comes after a long day. Not the hardest thing in parenting. Dressing your kids to take them to anywhere is dreadful for the most part. Not the hardest thing. Running your kids to sports programs, extracurriculars, that can get really tough and can get very stressful and can be very time consuming. It's not the hardest thing in parenting. There's a laundry list of other things that are difficult. But the hardest thing in parenting is when your child, shout out Huck, at 9:30 in the morning begins to speak to you and does not stop speaking to you until 7:25 when he goes to sleep, p.m. That's the hardest thing in parenting. And it comes with this is great. My kid loves me. My kid needs me. My kid wants to be around me. My kid has followed me the entire day because I'm his friend. I'm his buddy. I'm his everything. That doesn't change the fact that it makes you want to put yourself in a loony bin. It's by far the hardest thing. 9:30 to 7:25. Hey, Dad. Hey, Dad. Hey, Dad. Guess what, Dad? Guess what, Dad? Hey, Dad, have you seen this? Dad, do you want to do this? Dad, can I have this? Hey, Dad. Hey, Dad. And when I say it was from 9:30 to 7:25, there was, I don't think there was 1 minute, one full minute in my house besides when Huck took a 1 hour nap where there was silence for more than a minute. It didn't exist. And by the end of that day, there was a moment I kneeled down. I kneeled down and I held his arms and I looked him in the eyes and I just said to him, buddy, do you think that for 20 minutes you can just play with your cars up here by yourself? And he looked right back at mine and said, no. Can't blame him. Sunday was better. Sunday he rallied and he at least played with my daughter a little bit, and that was great. If he wasn't, though, that dude, he is holding on to me. I ran over him one time. I didn't know he was right behind me. Backed up. I hit something. I realized it was his head. And it's like the thing where now you're trying to do some kind of Matrix-style flip over top of him so you don't knock him over while you're reaching back to hold him from falling. And it's like, buddy, why are you standing inside of my thighs, what is that? What is my hamstring? Why are you standing in my hamstring? But there's like, what's going on there? And how did you sneak up on me like this? Silently. That was the time you were quiet. Hardest part in parenting, your kid talking nonstop for an entire day. It is, there is no other answer. And you may have one right now and you're like, I'm going to comment on the podcast. I just need you to realize right now, you're wrong. Okay. Real quick before we get into our discussion about Disney, because we need to, because it's important, and we're going to hit you with a real fact, and it may be a hard fact to swallow for some of you, but it's real. I have not said this since I think 2006. I had a sports show on 1510 KGA, maybe 790 The Fan at that time. And the number one thing to talk about in the sports world in Spokane during that time and during all times is your Gonzaga Bulldogs basketball team. And in 2006, 2007, again, I'm doing my sports show in the afternoons, 3 to 6. I'm saying that right now like I'm plugging it like you can listen tomorrow. You can't. I still wish I had more recordings from those years. I have some. I don't have enough. I wish I had saved more of that audio. They had to be just really awful. Imagine this podcast, but 50 times worse. That's hard to do, but I did it. That year, Adam Morrison had left to go to the NBA. JP Batista had left as a graduate. Errol Knight. Why can't I say his name? Earl Knight had graduated. Colin Floyd had left. That wasn't like the craziest one. I'm trying to remember who else had left that one. Stephen Gentry was on that list. I looked these up a little bit ago, and I'm having a hard time remembering the names. Anyways, Mo had left. The big ones were Mo had left, Batista had left, and Knight had left. And coming in, we knew of one of the guys. He ended up being someone who I love dearly. I get to call him a friend, and I'm thankful for that. Matt Bolden came in from Colorado as a 4-star recruit, big Gonzaga recruit. And he was coming in, but he was going to be a freshman. And I remember thinking as that year started, like this Gonzaga team, coming off of a couple Morrison years, was not going to be great. And I remember talking about that on the radio, saying out loud into the microphone, this Gonzaga Bulldog team in 2006, 2007, they might not even be good. We're going to have to give Matt Bolden a year. He can't just come in and carry this team and pick up where Morrison left off. We can't have that. Let me bring the roster back up. Derek Ravia was on the team, one of my all-time favorite Zags, extremely underappreciated. Micah Downs, who I love, was on that team. Jeremy Pargo was on that team. Pendo was on that team. Sean Mallon was on that team. I mean, they had some dudes on that team. But Heitfeld was on that team. Like, they had some dudes. But I just remember coming off of the team that they had just had the year before. It was like, this is going to be a tough year. You have one of the best scorers in the history of college basketball leaving you, and that is a lot to replace. And that team ended up going on to be 23-11. They were 11-3 in the WCC. They were the 10 seed in the NCAA tournament. They lost to Indiana in the first round as part of that time where Gonzaga had really good teams, but just couldn't get out of the first weekend of the tournament. Oh, how things changed 10 years later, 8 years later. My goodness, things changed crazy. Well, this year, since then, I have not said it. I said it maybe one other year. And I think it was the year, it was like Eat My Words year. I think I had said like, man, this team might not be that good. It was 2015, 2016. The team was 28-8 at the end of the season, and they went to the Sweet 16. So, in my face. That year they had Nigel Williams-Goss coming in. He seemed to be okay. Jonathan Williams came in that year. He was pretty good. But we had just lost Kevin Pangos, Gary Bell Jr., sort of that situation where your big-time change is happening at your guard position, and it's like, who's going to pick up in this spot? Well, the answer was that the Zags had Nigel Williams-Goss and Josh Perkins, who are really, really good. This year's team is not great. And after last night, staying up way too late watching them lose to St. Mary's, there's part of me that does want to say this team is not really that good. But that is where Mark Few gets you. That's the blender he puts your brain in a lot of times. The team is 21-8. They're 12-4 in conference. And I think you look at them and you can see straight up like their games against top teams, they haven't been great. They lost to Kentucky, lost to UConn, lost to UCLA, right? Some top 25 teams. They did beat a couple top 25 teams. They beat Baylor. They beat Indiana. So they have beat some teams, but then they've struggled in conference play. They've lost twice to St. Mary's. Like when, what? Twice to St. Mary's. Lost to Oregon State, lost to Santa Clara. And so this team is not a great, great team. And so my brain immediately goes after watching the St. Mary's game last night, watching them lose at home on senior night by 7. Something that's happened before, by the way. Gonzaga has lost on senior night to a team like St. Mary's, 2 St. Mary's before. So it's not really the end of the world like people are making it out to be on the internet. But I tell myself, right, this team's not good. I've said that before. I've said that before a lot with the Zags. And although this team is not great, and this team is not a team that you can look at on paper when you look at the rest of college basketball and say they are a contender to win it all. You just can't do that, because that would prove how oblivious you are towards basketball as a whole. That shows too much homer and not enough, like, let's think about this with our brains. Because it's easy to be a homer. It's easy for me to be a homer because I love the Zags and say, well, what are you talking about? This team's going to win it all. That's easy. But if you really want to break it down, you look at other teams and you look at what Gonzaga has, there's some glaring issues, and there would be a lot that would have to happen. But there's pedigree. And there is a NCAA tournament appearance every year since 1999. No other school can say that. Since Mark Few has been the head coach at Gonzaga, he has never missed the NCAA tournament. That is an insane number considering he started in 2000. Okay? What? Like, what? So this team is on the fence, and this team's going to be on the bubble. And for the next few weeks, Joe Lenardi is going to talk about how Gonzaga's on the bubble. Are they in or are they out? I will forever say that with this kind of run, one thing that is great for you and Mark Few, whether it's deserve it or not with his team, when you make a run like Mark Few has made, and you have made it to this many tournaments in a row, when there is the word bubble next to you, it's going to give you the benefit of the doubt, and it's going to go beyond looking at the team on paper and looking at the players. It is. Because Mark Few has earned it. So when it happens that Gonzaga is on the bubble, and if they are on the bubble on the day where the brackets are announced, and if there are teams that have whatever, net rating and Ken Palm and all this stuff, if there are teams with better ratings in those categories than Gonzaga, and Gonzaga, hey guys, you got to get out of here, and Gonzaga gets in over them, don't come running to me and say, this is ripped, this is rigged, this is stupid, this shouldn't happen. Gonzaga's earned it because they have put in the groundwork for 25 years. So you can't argue with that. All right, we got to get into the final moment. Let's talk some Disney here on the podcast. That was supposed to be quick Gonzaga talk. I can't do anything fast.
Kelly's, what are you into?
Okay, good. Everyone made their joke. Okay, now let's talk Disney. I had not looked at the comments on Sean'sLife.com for a very long time. They did not load for 3 weeks. All of a sudden, all of them loaded, and there was a ton of them. Shout out to Roberta. Shout out to Miguel. Shout out to Kelly. Shout out to Ron. Shout out to Gary. Shout out to Ian. Shout out to Talkin' Texan. Talkin' Texan, it said buffets all the way. If you ever make it to Texas, you have to go check out the best Chinese buffet ever, the East Gourmet Buffet in Fort Worth. Always fresh chicken, fish, beef, seafood, pork, sushi, and unusual desserts. My go-to place with girlfriends. Tall Texan, count me in. Count me in. I want that. So many people had left messages. I had missed them. They all loaded, and they were overwhelming. But this one came from my sister and her kids. So shout out to Addie, Grayson, Cash. Shout out to one of my favorite human beings of all time. My number one throughout all of my growing up years, my sister Erin, love her to death. They sent this message. This podcast is so entertaining for an 11-year-old boy all the way to a 41-year-old woman. But the 11-year-old says this comment is dumb, and so is Facebook 2013. What? Facebook is. Okay. We do all love the podcast and Sean. Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Gray. The question we have is this. What is your favorite Disney movie? Okay, bye. Whew. I mean, so that's a big question, right? What's your favorite Disney movie? That's a big one. And this is one that I'm assuming happens with a lot of people. I'm guessing that at some point in time in friendships for a specific style of person, this is a big moment when this comes up in the dating world, maybe, right? Maybe not all dating situations, but there's going to be somewhere this question comes up and it becomes a thing. Like, what's your favorite Disney movie? And the answer is going to matter maybe a lot more than it should. But I love Disney. And so I took this question seriously when I saw it yesterday. And I thought about it in between Huck taking breaths talking to me. And we need to face a reality when it comes to the world of Disney. And it is a fact. And this is not an opinion. This is just the way it is. Non-animated Disney movies are better than animated Disney movies. The catalog Disney has of non-animated Disney movies are better than the catalog Disney has of animated movies. They just are. Okay? So my favorite Disney movie is a non-animated movie, but we're going to look at some of the ones you look at all the animated ones, your Inside Outs, your Toy Stories, your Incredibles, your Aladdins, your Lion Kings, your Pinocchios, Cinderellas. They're great. They don't hang with the real ones. The non-animated ones are better. Freaky Friday, The Love Bug, Jungle to Jungle, The Shaggy DA, Remember the Titans, The Apple Dumpling Gang, The Absent-Minded Professor. Did I say Parent Trap? The old ones. These are great movies. Non-animated Disney movies are better than animated Disney movies. Now, I know all you heard me say, animated Disney lovers, is that animated Disney movies suck. That's not what I said. Animated Disney movies are so stinking good. They are so good. I love them. I watch them with my kids. They make me smile. They're wonderful. So that's just a shout out to how good the non-animated ones are. All right, but let's get into the favorite, because that was the question. So I already told you my favorite Disney movies are non-animated. In the world of animation, I love Aladdin. Aladdin's my favorite Disney movie in the animated world. It beats out three of them that are right there. The Great Mouse Detective, which I named my daughter after one of the characters in Great Mouse Detective. I love The Great Mouse Detective. It's going to be one of the Disney animated movies I've seen the most in my life. And I love it. But I didn't want to be that person who you ask them a question and they try to get hipster on you and they kind of lie, where Great Mouse Detective is probably my second favorite Disney movie, but you lie because you want to be cool. It's like, well, my favorite movie's Great Mouse Detective. It's Aladdin, man. Aladdin's a smash. You play the hits. So Aladdin's my favorite animated. Beats out Great Mouse Detective. Beats out The Rescuers Down Under. Ooh, that movie's so good. Lion King's way up there for me. I love that one. I'm a kid from the late 80s to the mid 90s. So that wheelhouse from Little Mermaid until like Lion King, Aladdin, though that run is wonderful for me. Okay. But in the world of Disney, my favorite Disney movie is The Computer Who Wore Tennis Shoes. Kurt Russell. What is it? Dean Wiggins? Hang on. Let me look up the cast of characters from The Computer Who Wore Tennis Shoes. Edging out a lot of other great Disney movie. 1969 for this Kurt Russell movie. And let's get some names of some characters in here. It's so good. Kurt Russell's Dexter. You had A.J. Arno, the bad guy. Dean Higgins. It was Higgins. Professor Quigley. Then you look at some of these pictures of these people who are in this movie, and I'm laughing because a lot of them must not have gone on to do a lot of filming. One of the guy's pictures is just a selfie of him in his house by a closet. Frank Welker. So good. 1969's The Computer Who Wore Tennis Shoes, my favorite Disney movie. And it barely edges out Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids is an emotional movie for me because it's a story of humor. It's a story of fun. But as a probably 11-year-old, 12-year-old boy when that movie came out, it's a story of love. Okay? You mixed in a really great love story with a pretty intense kissing scene. Was it right after the kids get chased by the ant? Man. I mean, that's heavy stuff in the heart of a 12-year-old looking for love. Shaggy DA's great. Jungle to Jungle. Love that. The Love Bug movies, all the Herbie movies are spectacular. Old school Freaky Friday. I never saw the Lindsay Lohan one. Old school Parent Trap. Never saw the new one, what Lindsay Lohan won. I'm sure they're great. Just they were out when I'm an adult. And that was not for me. Absent-Minded Professor, loved. Apple Dumpling Gang, I mentioned I loved. There are so many good ones. What's the one I can't remember with Angels in the Outfield? Angels in the Outfield. So good. Oh my gosh. The non-animated Disney movies are spectacular. Thank you, Aaron, for the question. If you want to get yours in, I think the website's working again, seanslife.com. You can also go over to Spotify. If you listen on Spotify, you can comment there, comment on YouTube. I think we had a couple comments on Spotify. I'll read them real quick for you. I was going to do comments on Friday, but we're in this now. Yvonne says this, Hobbs was sick with the puke. Now Calvin has it. It sucks. Hobbs missed school. Yvonne, worse than puking, worse than all that, when your kid misses school and then you have them all day, when you thought you weren't going to have them, it's worse than the throw up. It's worse than the throw up. And Kelly M., he said, it's that time of year. Slim, ask me about girls and lice. Ooh. I do not need that day. I do not. Olivia, never get lice. All right. I gotta go.